Okay, thanks a lot. So we'll call Baba Haruna and Clara Asare-Nyarko to give us their presentation on aspect and tense in translation, a study of French, English, and Fante as the last presentation for today. You are welcome.
Translation, and we are going to examine French, English, and Fante. And before we continue, I am Baba Haruna, and I'm a lecturer of French grammar in translation at the Department of French. I come with my partner.
Yeah, I'm also Clara Asare-Nyarko. I work with him at Department of French. I'm at the administrative section, and I'm a translator as well.
All right. So, since our primary school days, we are used to the notion of tense, past tense, present tense, present continuous, or now it's called present progressive, present past progressive, and so on. Now, tense refers to relates the time of the situation of communication to whatever is being talked about. So tense is actually deictic, meaning that it refers to the time of the event and the time of speaking. So whenever we are speaking, we are in the present. Whatever we are speaking about might be in the present, the past, or the future. And when you say "I will do," you are projecting the future from now. When you say "I did," you are projecting the past from the moment you are speaking. And that is from Bernard Comrie. Now, as I said, tense compares the temporal situation of the action or the situation to the time of the speaking. Aspect is different. Aspect is lesser known to us who's L1 or L2 is English, because that's when we go to school and we are talking. Aspect refers to the incompetence or completeness of the action or the state expressed by the verb. So tense is situation external time. That's to say that it talks about time outside the action, but aspect talks about time inside. So aspect talks about whether the action is ongoing or completed. For instance, the difference between the sentences "he was reading" and "he read" is that of tense. It's actually aspectual because both sentences refer to the past. He was reading refers to the past, he read refers to the past. He'll be reading refers to the future, he'll read refers to the future, but one is expressing a complete action, the other is expressing an incomplete action. That's to say that if I say he'll be reading, the action will be ongoing in the future, but he will read. I'm envisaging that the action will be ongoing and be completed in the future. Okay. Now let's go to translation. We all think we know translation, or some of us think we know translation. But translation is very broad. Very broad in the sense that it's a process and a product. The process being the conversion of a text from a source language into a target language. Let's say that from French to English, from Akan to Ga, from Ewe to Sal, or from even from a dialect to another dialect, for instance, from P Fante. Those translations. Okay. But that's what we know. But there's also something called intersemantic translation. Intersemantic translation deals with science, translation across science. For instance, if I do this, and I can might translate different from an English person, and I can might say, oh, I'm being insulted, and so you get angry. But an Englishman will say, oh, it's good. So that is catered for by the second definition, which says that it is the replacement of the science encoding the language by a science of another code, preserving so far as is possible in the face of entropy, invariant information with respect to a given system of reference. Now, what all this means, this is all high quality language, as the Americans would say. What it means is that, so if I do this, if I use another sign like this is not really language, but it's communication. And I'm translating come with a sign language. And that's what the non-hearing people do. When we write to, we are translating verbal message into visual message. So what Madam is doing is also translating. She's trying to encode what he would otherwise have uttered into script, which anybody who's conversant with that script can decode. Thank you. And that's from Alexander Lucianum. There are two forms of aspect. There's the lexical aspect and the grammatical aspect. Lexical aspect is embedded in the verb itself. So and grammatical aspect is the time, whether the action is complete or incomplete. So I can have various ways of indicating the perfective and imperfective grammatical aspect. Perfective grammatical aspect means that it is envisaging the action as complete in the past, in the present, or in the future. Imperfective means that it is not complete. So for Fante, we have the remarker. The re has got variants which are phonologically conditioned. So if I say Mary Z is different from moronum. Now the rule is called by the vowel of the verb. No, the re is called by the vowel of the verb Z. So Z is imperfective, it's ongoing, it's progressive. But we we tend to think of it as present. We'll get that. That Ozi means he is eating or she is eating, because the O is not gender specific. Okay. The grammatical aspect is marked in stative verbs by change of tone. Habitual. In our time, we have in grammar, we talk about habituals. In the present tense, the simple present tense is actually a habitual aspect. He eats. It's habitual. It doesn't mean that at the moment he's eating. I eat food does not mean that I'm eating food. It means that at any time the fact that if you give me food, it will be true that I'll eat it or I might eat it, depending on my state of mind. Now, in Akan, the habitual is marked differently from the progressive instative verb that denote situations by change of tone. Otinaho is progressive. Otinaho is habitual. Otinaho is what? Rising tone, right? Otinaho is falling. Order is habitual. Order is progressive. Banan is habitual. Is progressive. Now, to understand these things, you have to be very familiar with Akan. So these are the examples. The denim is habitual. Every day I sleep in them. That's the clause. With the denim I'm lying. I'm in the room. I recline on the bed. Now, as I'm speaking. Okay. So more examples. Oh yeah, it's perfected. The action is complete. It's perfected. Why is also perfected. It's equivalent of the perfect tenses in English. Why am I saying that? Why can be past perfect, it can be present perfect, it can be future perfect, given the necessary context. So let's go. So why can he's done it, he will have done it, or he had done it, depending on the context. In French or in English, he read is perfected, the action is complete in the past. He was reading isn't perfected, it's imperfected. You got the person doing the reading at the moment, and you don't know whether the reading completed or not. That's not what you're interested in. You're interested in the fact that the reading was going at the time that you are referring to. In French, the same thing exists. Il a lu. Il a lu is perfected. He has read or he read. Il lisait is different. Il lisait is like he was reading or he read every day. In French, they don't really mark the present continuous. So they use the present indicative, which is the equivalent of the simple present in English. Initially is also imperfect. It means he reads every day. Shaggy means every day. So he reads every day. So that one is progressive. It's going on. It might go on after I've left. But that's not my focus. My focus is that he's reading now. That's one. Next. Now, let's compare these two. Okunkanin. Okunkanin. You read it. Or when it was when the clock struck 6, he was reading or she was reading. When you go, he will be reading. It's also progressive, but I can does not deal with tense society. So whatever you say is dependent on the context or the situation. So for this one, the example on the board, one is past, one is future, but it's the same na or okay. So the aspectual marker rain is neutral. As I said, it's neutral. It's therefore deictic. The ring is a deictic marker for time. So it also refers to what surrounds the utterance. For this, that's why Crop and Dakubu say that I can, and especially for, and in this case for Fante, aspect that simply a great role in that. Tense, and it's also in there. And if he was there, so then he is here. Now let's go to lexical aspect. Lexical aspect deals with the internal, the nature of the verb itself, the nature of the verb itself. So we've got actions, activities, accomplishments, achievements, and a fourth one. Now, we are interested in a class of verbs called semifactives. Semifactives are things, are verbs that encode actions that are done once. So, for instance, he spat on the floor. How many times can you spit on the floor? Once, any moment. But you can be humming continuously. You cannot be spitting continuously unless you spit repeatedly. So spit is semifactive. Explode is semifactive. Slap is semifactive. You cannot say he's slapping when the action is repeated. You cannot say he's spitting when the action is repeated. So for instance, he hit him is once. He hit him several times, it's repeated. Lightning means that there were several repetitions of the semifactive action of flashing. Okay, a bun, that's he hit him. A bun. The values will replicate for semifactives which are repeated. Obopan means that he hit several times. Opapainimodo, all the parts here. Or the alternative say, okay. So in conclusion, we've come to the end of our study, so I would like to move on. So in conclusion, the study focused on the simple present tense in French and English, with of course reference to the progressive tense in English, as well as the habitual aspect, and yes, the habitual, which is often problematic in translation among the tribe. I'll trust that translation books involving aspects encountered in translation from and into French, English, and Latin may be resolved through context, collocation, and tone, especially in the translation Fante habituals. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Haruna, Baba, and Clara, the assistant. It never ceases to amaze me how complex language is. Some of us are in very unsafe waters, but I'm sure some of you can give some comments or ask questions to the presentation. Any questions, any comments? This is our last presentation for the afternoon. So. Yes, please.
Thank you very much for your presentation. For me, who is a business person, I'm new in this languages. But then I want to clarify something. You know, in typical Akan language, there are some words they are not easily translated into English and vice versa. So how do you pronounce it? I mean, how do you, in grammar, what is the name to such words? And how are you able to translate such words? Should some of them come up? Are you getting what I'm saying?
I would like to give an example to clarify your question.
An example, I don't really have an example, but I'm also aware that there are some key languages which are not in English. And so when it comes to translation, it becomes difficult because I've once witnessed a proceeding in local court where somebody is translating in English. The person understands, so you say, my casa. Are you getting? I don't know.
Yeah, we get you. Get you all right.
Yeah, so I want to find out in literature or in language, how do you term such words and how are you able to translate them to suit those Akan ways?
Thank you for your question. In translation, there are techniques to use depending on the target audience, the languages involved, and factors like that. So depending on the audience, it is let me say, a very formal context. You could use the terms, the people may be familiar with it. If not, you can do something in a formal context like this that many people are informed. You can do what we call borrowing. And you can do direct borrowing, which means you leave the term and you take it to the other language, like COVID-19. Many languages have borrowed that term into their languages. Now, if you are in a village and you're trying to explain COVID-19 to somebody, you are communicating. Translation is about communication. So your target is the audience understand what you're trying to tell them. So in that context, you may do what we call explicitation. You explain the concept to the audience. So it depends. You can do something else called cultural substitution, where you find something that is our presenter said, you are in a different culture where there's no snow here, and you're talking about snow, or you're talking about something in Ghana that does not exist in another culture. What you can do is depending on the context and the people, you can do what we call cultural substitution. You find something that is quite close to the target culture that the people can easily identify with, and you use it as an example. So
For instance, the case of snow. We know there's no snow in Ghana, but there's hail, and hail is Kwanchaba. So you tell them it's Kwanchaba, and that's it. It solves the matter. What we call Akwahije here, people refer to it as partridge, but it's not partridge. It's francolin, but since everyone knows partridge, so you say partridge, and it's done. I mean, they get the message.
and then we have words that some linguists will say that we have Ghanaian Englishes, we have the word Englishes. So we have what some people call Ghanaianisms. Some like enskin, a white person may not know what enskinment means. It's something we created here. And so if you are explaining instruments and stuff like that to someone, you would think that the person understands these concepts, outdoor and things like that, Ghanaianism. So European may not be able to understand some of these things. So it depends on the people you are dealing with and the situation. So
It's beautiful. Thank you very, very much. Any other questions or comments? Okay, in the absence of any questions or comments, I want to thank you all very much for participating and for the speakers as well. We've all learned a lot, and we hope you'll all be able to attend tomorrow as well for the opening ceremony and all that follows. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, madam.
Session is closed.